Welcome to the show that explores the methods and strategies on rocking the financial side of your music business. With over 40 years combined experience, here are your hosts, Chris Webb and Dave Tamkin.
Welcome to Musician's Tip Jar, where we talk about musicians and money. We believe in creating both a great life and a great career. I'm Chris Webb, joined by my co-host Dave Tamkin, also known to his nephew and nieces as Great Uncle Captain Dave.
It's only a bad title to have when you're in Metaverse for Facebook and your nephew gets on and is being followed by someone called Great Uncle Captain Dave. And then there have to be like, yes, there's a young boy in the Metaverse right now being followed around by Great Uncle Captain Dave. And then all of a sudden, my brother's account just went down. They just shut him out of there.
Just shut him.
Yeah. So, and I had a mustache in there too, which is not always a good look in the Metaverse.
Well, maybe we can throw up that picture you sent me. It's just so everyone can get context of Captain Dave.
All right. I was so happy. My nephew got me that captain hat. Felt really good about it.
It looks good. I'm not saying it doesn't. Well, today we sit down with Unicorn Sync Agency owner, musician, and now author, Elaine Ryan. We discuss balancing the phases of creating, why she started a sync agency, and how to find your win-win-win ideas. Today's quote comes from our guest, Elaine. She said, "For me, it's always been being able to create songs that I care about and get them heard by other people."
Today's nonprofit is MauiMusicMission.com. At Maui Music Mission, they're dedicated to breaking down the barriers that prevent children from accessing quality music education. Their vibrant after-school music club provides a joyful, immersive experience where students explore ukulele, piano, percussion, voice, and music theory, all while building essential life skills. Learn more at MauiMusicMission.com. If you find this information useful, everyone, please rate and subscribe to the podcast and also slam that like button if you're on YouTube so we can help keep you up on the finance side of your music business.
Elaine Ryan is a musician and sync agent who has made her living in music for over 15 years. She has toured throughout Canada and the US and Europe. She has released 4 full-length albums, an EP, and numerous singles. Her songs have been featured in ads and on TV shows airing on NBC and Amazon. She is the founder of sync licensing agency Unicorn Sync, where she's helped a growing network of indie artists land placements in film and television. She also co-founded Sync Music for a Change, a nonprofit initiative connecting musicians with sync opportunities while raising money for charitable and progressive causes. Elaine is a member of the Recording Academy. She lives in the San Francisco Bay Area with her husband, her journal, and her guitar. Most recently, she's about to release her first book, Living a Music-Centered Life, a guide to balance fulfillment and paying the bills. We really enjoyed our time with Elaine Ryan and know that you will get a lot out of this too. So let's go. Elaine Ryan, thank you so much for being here with us on Musician's Tip Jar. I appreciate you spending some time here with us.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure.
So I just kind of wanted to preface with the fact that you and I have met only briefly a couple times at the Durango Expos over the years. Although I have been aware of your projects with Unicorn and the other stuff that you've been doing for a while because of being there, and you guys wear those fantastic helmets for a while. So those are really smart marketing tactics. And so I think I want to start with kind of giving you a chance to kind of give us your backstory, a little bit about how you got into music and how you got to this kind of point where you're kind of putting in this content that you're making now.
Sure, yeah. So I have been a singer-songwriter for many years, since my early 20s. Just at the beginning, was focusing on my own writing. I did some tours in Canada and a West Coast tour in the US. And then I moved to Maui, Hawaii, to be with my now husband, and sort of pivoted to like earning my income as a musician there because there's just so many resorts looking for live music. So I was able to do that like four nights a week on Maui, and then wanted something more challenging. You know, I had created an album, and I sold 1,000 hard copies of that. You know, it was a goal of mine to sell them at my shows. And then I ended up creating like a website to help people find live music on Maui. And then we moved to the Bay Area to for a couple different reasons, but one of the reasons was to see if I could have that website work elsewhere. So I did that for a while. COVID hit and live music events was not a thing anymore. So I kind of wrapped up that project. It's still on Maui. It's still like their events calendar there, which is cool.
That's great.
And yeah, and then I started getting into music licensing. I took a course on sync licensing online. I met a whole bunch of people, co-writers, first online and then in person in LA. And then that kind of led to a nonprofit initiative, Sync Music for Change. And that led to Unicorn Sync, which is the licensing agency that I run. And yeah, I'm still writing songs. And yeah, I had a viral hit that I co-wrote that just went viral a few months ago, which was the kind of like first for me. And that was interesting too.
That's amazing. Congrats on that.
Mhm.
What did it go viral on?
On Instagram and Facebook, basically the reels, it got used in like over 1 million reels on Instagram and Facebook just as like a background.
Excellent. Congrats on
Yeah.
that. Yeah, we'll share that on a link at the bottom of this.
Do you still introduce your husband as your current husband?
He's still my current husband.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, just making.
He was my then boyfriend. That's why
Okay.
he's my current husband.
Yeah.
And living in Maui and then switching over to San Fran, did you feel like the economy that you experienced from one kind of a destination location to more of a functioning city changed your ability to continue being a performer?
So it's funny. I thought that I would. I thought that I was kind of giving up the like playing cover gigs thing when I moved to San Francisco, because Hawaii is such a tourist driven economy.
Yeah.
That you can really work, you know, you could work 6 nights a week there if you wanted to. And I knew people who did. But then when I moved to the Bay Area, I realized there's a lot of corporate gigs and weddings here. And so I basically like increased my rate, decreased my shows, and kept income fairly steady.
Mm.
So it wasn't, that was the main, I mean, and it's this type of thing where I could still be playing. I could be playing the hotels and the Hard Rock Cafe and all that stuff. And I have done some of that here, but it kind of burns you out after a while.
Yeah.
You know, so
Yeah. You got to find that sweet spot that keeps you motivated, right?
yeah, totally.
Do you feel like most of the time when someone says they moved to San Fran, I would say, oh, that must have been a lot of a price increase, you know, for the cost of living. But coming from Maui, maybe that was a wash?
No, yeah, well, I mean, rent is a bit more expensive here for sure, but it's pretty pricey on Maui too. And food is super expensive. Everything has to be shipped to the island. So food got cheaper. Yeah.
You mentioned burnout for having a music career longer than 15 years now. Do you have some habits and routines that are critical for you to avoid that burnout?
Yeah, well, honestly, the burnout comes more from playing cover gigs too many nights a week, you know, and there's only so many new songs you want to play. And you really have to balance it, especially if it's like what I call a wallpaper gig where you're the background music and you've been playing these songs over and over. Like, and I wouldn't even say so much it's like burnout, like, which I associate more with working too many hours and not getting enough sleep and that kind of thing. It's more just like boredom or lack of challenge and needing to find new, like, I think basically, if you're like talking of habits, it's just always checking in with myself and trying to find things that I will find, you know, engaging and exciting. And yeah, so that happened, you know. And so I did that website, and then I did the Sing Music for Change and the licensing agency, and songwriting I never get tired of. So
yeah. Do you feel like you put a certain amount of schedule to keeping up on your songwriting in the midst of all these other things you're doing, or does it feel still organic to you that you impulsively have to write?
So during the pandemic, I had like a write a song a week habit that I was doing. And then I got to this stage where it felt like I have all these songs and I want to record them. You know, you can write so many songs, but it takes budget to record good quality songs. And so I kind of put a pause on the writing, shifted to writing the book. And on that, I was doing half an hour to an hour a day, writing the book, editing the book, promoting the book, publishing. That's a lot of work too.
Yeah.
So I kind of just have always, my thing is to put half an hour to an hour into creative stuff per day, whether that's songwriting or recording like a work tape for a song I want to record, or working on the book.
I think 90 minutes is it's a good goal.
30 to 60, you know?
Okay.
But I mean, 90 is great. It's, I think, like, so I read this book, Atomic Habits by James Clear. Have you guys heard of that one?
Oh, yeah.
You
We
know?
just had our last guest bring it up.
Yeah, it's awesome. And I really think that the consistency is way more important than the duration each time, you know? So even if it's 15 minutes, if you can do it on a daily basis, the gains are, you know, and try not to skip more than one day kind of thing. It's super powerful.
You brought up in Maui that you could play 6 nights a week, and I'm sure you had a tight group of musicians there that knew each other because of that community. How did that change for you when you moved? And also, how did you reestablish starting over for networking in your new town?
Yeah, so I don't know that I would say that the community was that tight on Maui. It was just people who I'd see coming and going from the hotels, and you know, I had definitely had a few musician friends, but the vibe was felt less around creating original music and more around performing music. And that was, creating music was what I was keen on. But when I moved to the Bay Area, I had this website, Who Plays, and my goal was to try to get it running in San Francisco. And so getting musicians to sign up and post their shows. Like I took like some courses on software engineering, and, you know, it was a whole thing with a database behind it. And so that really motivated me. And I went out to a bunch of jams and started connecting with like soul musicians, soul jazz people more here, and doing some like busking on the street. And it was easier actually to find people who were kind of, I don't know, just in the scene. I guess because it's a city, there's more like open mics and jams and all that kind of stuff happening. Although I did do some of that on Maui too. And then I kind of built community online. Like my songwriting partners I've met mostly through Facebook groups and courses on sync licensing. And then through that met them in like LA and Nashville. And then through those people there connected to other people. Yeah. So now I feel like my community is more online.
Yeah, it's interesting how, especially after COVID, everyone became more comfortable with relying on the internet for so many things like networking and creating opportunity that perhaps we kind of were maybe a little more hesitant to really give it a full chance. I mean, just like streaming performances, it became so much more normal
Mm-hmm.
and comfortable for people to do. I had a hard time adjusting to playing to a microphone and to a camera
Yeah,
versus the stage, you know?
me too. I tried. So I did a few shows on Twitch, and I always felt so like empty afterwards, you know, like because you're used to performing in front of an audience and the show's over, and then you go hang out and you have a drink and you chat, and you know, there's like a connecting component to it. And this
Yeah,
just felt like singing into a screen and you get little like comments popping up, but
yeah,
that's not really like what I'm in it for, you know?
totally.
Yeah.
It roboticizes it in some weird way.
Yeah.
Is that a word? But if it isn't, it should be, because it's like taking the romance out of it,
Yeah.
putting the robot into it.
Yeah, totally.
Chris and I started this during the pandemic, and talk about singing and performing into a camera, talking into a camera, or even just a microphone and not being used to it. I would get that same feeling of being a little nervous, wanting to perform well, speak clearly, don't use my ums, show up for Chris in a way. And then afterwards we'd get off and I'd have that same adrenaline like you would after a show, and I would
Yeah.
have nowhere to put it. And it was
Yeah.
very frustrating.
Yeah. I mean, it's nice to have a partner in it. I remember doing like listening sessions for the nonprofit we have, Music for a Change. And I started it with my friend Justina, and like we'd hang up and I'd like text her immediately being like, so how do you think? What do you think? How did it go? You know, because you want to just have that feeling of a moment to debrief about it, you know?
Yeah. But it's like, as we go through all this, we kind of figure out, you know, maybe ways that we're good at something that we didn't realize, you know. And I think that's what artists really should allow themselves to do so often, is explore all these different ways that you feel like doing it, because usually that's like an instinct to say, hey, I think you'd enjoy this, you know. And
Mm-hmm.
and it's still so many ways. I think I relate to how you have grown in your path in your career, because I think you just allowed yourself to try these different things and gone with what felt like something you wanted to do, right? Something that you were interested in putting your time into. So I want to follow that up with a question of like, as you've done all this, how would you define a music career now, and how can someone make sure that they're on the right track?
Yeah, so it's funny. The word career implies money, basically, right? The reason that I named the book Living a Music-Centered Life is because I want to emphasize the vocation aspect of it, that the importance, if it is important to you to be a musician and to have music be a big part of your life, then you can choose to do that in many different ways. So music career can mean, that you are focused on earning your living doing music or music related things, or it can mean that you are working to have music be like the central hub of your life and then finding ways to earn a living around that. So having a successful music career, I think it really depends on your own value system and what it is that you want. I think for me, it's always been being able to create songs that I care about and getting them heard by other people. And I feel like the getting them heard by other people, it's like it can be a sort of like a quantity or quality thing. Sometimes you write songs that really deeply resonate with a small group of people. And sometimes you write songs that widely kind of like are heard by a huge number of people, but don't necessarily land in any way other than like, oh, there's a beat that I'm interested in. So yeah, so there's the getting your music out there component of a music career, and then there's the earning money aspect of a music career. And I think in our time, it's, for me at least, it's the getting the music out there bit is more important to how I like derive meaning. And it does feel like unfair that you can really get your music out there and not be compensated for it. But that's kind of the world we are in as musicians. And I just think it's really important for people to like go into music with kind of a clear-headed understanding that your worth is not defined by how much money you happen to make from music or music related things, even though there are definitely paths to do that. The gigging path, the sync licensing path are the two main ones, but how much money you make from them doesn't necessarily line up with how much you are personally deriving meaning from what you're doing.
So maybe would you say that to be right on track in this case would be to feel that you're doing what it is that's satisfying you?
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's because it's like for my own personal experience, I've written songs that have gotten placed in TV shows that I'm proud that they got placed in a show. It's exciting. It's like, oh yeah, I got a placement. But they're not, when I reflect on what I'm most proud of in terms of artistry, those don't happen to be the songs that I feel like, oh, that was really like, that song's made a difference in the world. I feel like that song helped a picture say what it needed to say at the time, and I'm glad it was useful, but it doesn't necessarily make me feel like I'm on the path. You know what I mean? Whereas other songs that I just play live for a group of people, they might not even be recorded, and people come up and say how much that touched them. Like,
You mentioned you had a goal of, before COVID, of selling 1,000 hard copy CDs, which obviously now would be hard to do just because many people don't even have something to play a CD on. Would you say sync licensing was an answer to compensating for that monetary thing that you had before? Did that come during COVID, or did you already start that while you were on the journey of, we were all selling hard goods?
So the selling the hard goods was Maui. So that would have been around like 2015 to 20, I don't know, around that time. And the people buying the CDs were generally older tourists because the younger people were like, can I stream it already? Right. Yeah. But definitely like the not being able to sell hard like CDs at shows is that's really hard for artists because that was like a really good supplementary stream. And sync licensing, yeah, it's a totally different kind of stream and not as consistent as selling merch. I think merch is really important. Like, not, if you don't have CDs, it's great to have something else, with even like, yeah, a thing with a QR code on it that links to the streaming, that connects to the streaming thing, to your music, but that they can buy just to support you. But sync licensing is really different because it's very shot in the dark. I mean, there's a consistency you need to use, but you never know when a song will land, and it's saturated and it's very relationship based, networking based.
So I'm curious then, with now the way you approach shows, how many would you say that you're aiming to play, like, say, per month at this point?
Like 4.
Okay, so with 4,
Mm-hmm.
like, do you set, okay, I need to make this much money or this show isn't worth doing? Or do you just say, I'm going to do this show and it's not about the money? Like, where are you at with that whole kind of mentality?
So for the corporate wedding stuff, it's like definitely I would say like all about the money.
Yeah.
Like it needs to be well paid or I'm not interested in doing it. And for the personal like songwriter show, it's more like I want to play a show like 4 times a year to people who are willing to come out. And that's not about the money. It's about, sharing my music with people.
Because perhaps you see that there's a greater result than just the monetary moment of the evening when you
100%. Yeah, I think I maybe haven't. I mean, I think there will be other musicians who are more perhaps younger, but are just more dedicated towards building a personal fan following.
Yeah.
And I haven't put, at least in recent years, much effort into that because I don't know. I find that it's really hard. And it requires a certain type of personality. The type of person that can bring people out to events generally is this particular type of personality.
There's also a particular type of social situation you want to put yourself in and day out.
Mm-hmm.
I think back to just what it took to bring people out at a certain age where you were out all the time. You went to go see your friends play. You were at gatherings, picnics, barbecues, bars, whatever it may be. And it was easy to say, hey, come check this out. And when you're not doing that anymore because maybe you have different priorities as far as maybe writing for sync or being creative in other ways in your evenings than going out. I'm just trying to put that as respectful as possible.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have kids, but a lot of the people who would come to my shows do.
Mm-hmm.
The show needs to be between, I think, 5:30 and 6:30 p.m. for them to be interested.
Happy hour, right?
Yeah.
That's right. But let's talk a little bit then about how, as you kind of created this sync source of income and how that spawned into creating your sync agency. Can we just kind of get a little bit of how that all kind of occurred? I know that you were starting to write with sync, just kind of dabbling in it. How did that turn into getting these placements and starting a sync agency?
Yeah, so in 2019, I took a course online around sync licensing. And then I spent about a year, like every day I emailed people. I think 1 or 2 emails a day.
And that was an online course?
It was an online course. Yeah.
That's amazing. I love this.
Yeah. And I just did a whole bunch of research, sent my music, got my music together, had some quality songs, and then emailed like a music supervisor every day. I got some people downloading, a couple people like, thanks, but nothing. And I was just like, how is this possible? Am I just, I had faith, but I was starting to, question whether it was real. Like the music licensing was like a possibility for me. And I went on a walk, as one does during COVID, and thought about like, what could I do that's a bit different? And I've always been into activism, and charity stuff, just kind of like, that's something I care about. And in the course, the woman who taught the course was like, never be political, always keep politics out of it. You never want to because like Coca-Cola doesn't want to deal with your political views. It's like a turnoff. But I noticed on social media that the music supervisors that I followed were totally political. They were really into activism. And I thought, well, you know what? Why don't I just give this a try where I do a listening session with music supervisors, raise money for something, and, try to make it a win-win-win. So I started Sync Music for a Change, which is every month or two, we do a listening session on Zoom. People donate to a cause that a music supervisor cares about. And in exchange for donating, they submit a song. Like, they don't donate to me directly. They send me the receipt of their donation to Red Cross or whatever it is. Collect all the submissions, listen to all the songs, pick like 15 that I think the music supervisor will connect with, send all of them, whoever donated, all of them get sent to the music supervisor. And then that was just a way for me to connect directly with music supervisors, for them to know who I am, to start to build a relationship. It was a way to raise money for a bunch of good causes and then help the musicians in my community to like get their songs heard. And so that was cool. That right away that went well. It was like, sometimes you feel like, oh, I got to really keep working. But sometimes when something works, like it works right away, you get immediate feedback that like, this is a good thing. So that was great. And I was doing it with Justina Chandler, who's also a songwriter and was a co-writer of mine. And then pretty much like immediately the people we had on were like, oh, we need, like, how can we clear all this music through one person? Because it's too much to have to go back to each different musician to see if we can use their music. And so Justina and I were like, should we just make an agency? Should we do it? And so we decided to give it a shot. And then Unicorn Sync was created. And that's sort of how that all went. I think the placements that I've had personally haven't come through my agency. They've come through other sync agents that I've signed my songs with. Mm-hmm. And I met those agents through conferences and through co-writers mainly. Mm-hmm.
Do you feel like now when you represent the Unicorn agency, the sync agency, that you feel like it has more of a... Why are you guys laughing?
Oh, that's my
I didn't see that. Sorry. Do you feel like it represents something political? Do you think that it represents maybe an opinion? Do you want, or do you, I guess what I should say is, do you put that stuff forward to help create a brand or an identity that sets you apart?
I mean, I think, yeah, I don't know. I don't think that Unicorn Sync represents anything particularly political, although maybe, I mean, it kind of has progressive vibes. I mean, unicorns are also a symbol of the gay community, which I'm an ally, but I'm not part of. And, you know, because it's connected to Sync Music for a Change, I mean, probably progressiveness is generally the vibe.
And it's all woman owned, correct?
It is. Well, yeah, it's woman owned right now. I currently have a partner who is a guy, Pete Davis, who's a music supervisor, but we're just kind of starting out with the partnership and haven't gotten into the details about ownership and that kind of thing. Yeah.
How did you meet Pete Davis?
How did I meet him? I met him because another music supervisor used one of our songs and then posted it on Instagram, and he reached out to me saying he needed songs for a reality TV show. And then we started an email correspondence, and then I went to LA and we went out for dinner, and we've been connected ever since.
About networking.
Yes.
100%. And the other thing about this too is that I feel like what makes sync work nowadays is that it can help bring you to that audience that normally you wouldn't be exposed to, that can then find, like you said, if maybe the song itself wasn't your favorite, it can at least get them channeled to your website, which you must have, right? And then create an opportunity for them to really dive into your music that you're proud of.
Totally.
I was thinking of Joel Ansett. Do you know Joel he comes to the Durango sometimes, but he's another...
It's ringing a bell for sure.
He's a fantastic artist, and he has been for decades, right? But not had that many placements. He recently got a placement on a 911 kind of drama.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
And immediately the Shazam, went exploding on his account. Yeah. And then all of a sudden his song turns up on iTunes, in the top 10, and like just overnight from this one. And that song was from an album, I think 4 albums ago.
Yeah.
Yeah. So just amazing how that can kind of work in synchronicity.
Yes.
With you, the artist.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it is one of those things where even more than the fee for whatever you get for being on the 911 show is the I mean, there are like royalties and stuff, but there's when people Shazam the song, they get to see all of everything you have up on Apple or Spotify. And that is like a huge way to build recognition and build a fan base, especially if you're sound has been consistent, and yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that is something that I think a lot of people struggle with, is they make albums that kind of go all over the place, and then it makes it harder to brand when we see them.
Yeah, I mean, because then if people Shazam you and the song that they Shazammed that they liked it has other songs that are similar, then they're going to be more likely to follow you.
How would you say that being a songwriter has helped you or hindered you when it's come to sync licensing? The creative mindset of being able to switch from songwriter to now business and having to look at songs that would create a momentum within that, say, TV show or movie, relative to just having a piece that has its own mission.
Yeah, honestly, like, yeah, I think getting into sync licensing strengthened my songwriting because it's just learning about structure. Like, I think that the key thing in sync that you need to keep in mind is the lyrics, is to not be overly specific with your lyrics, because then you want to be able to like convey an emotion rather than a detailed story for a song that works for sync licensing, because the picture itself is the story, and your song is helping people to feel the feelings that go along with the story. And just like learning how to write, like listening to what works for music licensing has helped me write better songs. I don't know, they have to be really good to land, and they can't be too on the nose. Like, they can't be telling people what they want to hear. I used to write a lot more folky stuff. You know, I grew up listening to Ani DeFranco, who is like all about the convoluted lyric.
She is my idol. So
yeah, she's amazing.
She's the reason I started playing music the way I do, actually. I'm a huge fan.
Yeah, she's great. I love her. I saw her a few months ago at the Fillmore here. So, but her lyrics for a lot of her songs are like very specific, you know, like, and so, you know, I'm sure she has some songs that are less like that and could be licensed easily, but the ones that are very specific are probably harder to license, which is another like whether or not your song works well for sync licensing doesn't really have to do with how good the song is, you know, or whether it has a place in the world, or because Ani DeFranco's amazing. But yeah, like in terms of being a songwriter and a business owner, I think I just am, my brain is ambidextrous. I can kind of go into detail in analytical mode, and I can also go into creative mode. Probably, I mean, I know that there are other creative people who are a lot more talented than I am in the songwriting space, who are maybe not as good in the running a business space.
Nice to know she's with her current husband. Thought that was very important.
Semantics. So where do we start with this? You know, the thing for me was I've thought often about, can I relocate, you know, which we could easily make into a whole section of discussion, because people, and sometimes you kind of get stuck living in an area that you've built a business. It's kind of, I'm not saying I'm stuck, but maybe that's too strong of a word. But you're saying you can get stuck. You're
Some
trapped.
people can, yeah, by mountains, just surrounded. Not saying you are, but surrounded, trapped by, but living in Red Rocks, you know.
So I like this discussion about how can you just pick up and move. Now, you've done this twice over the years, but I've never really done that. I mean, I guess I did it once, but it doesn't really count, because when I moved to Colorado, I was 20 years old, and I really had built only a name for the band that I was in, not myself. And so it's really fun to talk with other people, because you do realize that markets, they do have a lot of things that repeat themselves. You know, there's a lot of things that if you can build it in one prosperous community, whatever it is you're trying to build, then you're likely to be able to do that again somewhere else.
Yep, and probably even better, because you've learned so much from the first time you've done it.
Yeah. Well, and she said she went into the locals, the networking. She went in to make sure that she was doing the things that she needed to do to be and meet the people that would help her get established quicker.
And she had a great idea, too, with creating that calendar in Maui. And I related to that as far as when I moved to Colorado the first time, I built headabovemusic.com, which was just somewhere where musicians could answer questions and help other musicians out. And through that, you had ad marketing, got to reach out to local businesses, helped with promoting stuff. And from there, I was able to connect with a lot more musicians in town because I had something to offer them, which I think for any musician moving to a new town, doing something like that, whether it's building a website just for open mics or for your niche in music or discussion or songwriting, or like she did with events, I'm sure every town could use more of that to have a community to share with each other.
I mean, that's a pretty interesting idea. Like that if you're going to relocate, maybe the big advice here out of both yours and Elaine's experience is that go with something to offer, right? Go with something that you can immediately offer everyone else is how you're going to bring value to the community.
Yeah. And it's an easy ask. What's someone going to say? No, I don't want to help my community.
Yeah.
You know, it puts you in a pretty good spot.
Or no, I don't want your free help that you're offering.
Yes.
To make my life better. Yeah. No, that's a great point.
It gives you some kind of just, I don't know, like, they say when you look in the mirror and give yourself a super person pose just to build that self-confidence. If you're helping out your community, that's just some built-in self-confidence that you can let negative things roll off you a lot easier, I think.
Well, and I feel like now that we say that out loud, thinking back to a few people that we've talked to before or that we know that have done this relocation thing too, a lot of them did this too. They've built some sort of offer that they can bring with them and improve the new market that they're entering. And like you're doing, and you're going to be here this week, right? You're flying back and you can expand. Essentially, now you're using 2 markets.
Yeah. And it's been fun. And I appreciate Colorado in a way that I might have gotten used to over the last 15 years. Just like when I came back to Chicago and now the Midwest, I was able to appreciate it differently. So it does open up a lot of opportunities on both ends for sure. I guess I wanted to talk about the ability to generate income when moving to a new town. She did something pretty awesome by not only reaching out to other musicians, but that website can provide premium subscriptions. It could build traffic for her, build her email list. You're connecting with other musicians and saying, hey, let's reach out to other venues and say, we can put it on this website, these shows. It's just a great marketing position for yourself when moving to a new town on so many different levels. Being the gatekeeper to that puts you in a position to meet a lot more people than you probably wouldn't be able to otherwise. So I wanted to just talk about that a little bit, which I think we did.
Another thing that stood out to me was avoiding burnout versus boredom. I think that's actually a pretty healthy distinction to make sure you're aware which one you're feeling when you're in these situations. Because you could also be feeling both.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think there are times that I can say I've noticed I felt both, but it can be also just a better way to guide you to know what to do next if you distinguish which one you're actually feeling. Because burnout really should have a different follow-up with how to handle it, right? Like burnout could mean that you need to take a break from what you're doing or change what you're doing. Boredom sometimes is sort of like, I mean, with my kids, if they say they're bored, my new reaction is like, so figure it out, like do something for yourself. No one's going to come and fix that for you. And so I think boredom sometimes it can be taking a break from it, but more often it means maybe doing something differently.
Or putting your energy into one thing more than the other to give that thing a little rest for a while.
Yeah.
I know we've been busting our butt for quite a few months now on this season, and we're already talking about what we're going to be doing on the downtime to build up for next season. But I am looking forward to taking some of these notes that we've learned from our guests over these last few months and start working on those things to start playing out more. And so I could come back to this with, some new vigor.
Yes. I think we also tend to be more productive if we follow what we're motivated to do, right? So boredom could be a sign that you're not being very productive because you're bored.
Can you say the last time you were bored? I mean, knowing how many things or how many dishes you're spinning in the air.
I think the way I'd say it is I can get bored in moments. Like in moments of doing all the things that I'm doing, I'll hit a moment where I'm like, it's not that I say to myself, I'm bored. I just think like, I don't feel like doing this.
Yeah. Well, that's a whole other conversation too. What you feel like doing.
And it's so like if I was to put this into the context of playing one of those, as she calls them, wallpaper shows, and which I certainly know I'm familiar with, and if I have that moment of like, ugh, I have this is just what works for me. I have to find something that makes me interested. Like I'm gonna be like, oh, I'm gonna play a song that I'm really uncomfortable with right now, because then I'm gonna force myself to focus and to distract myself from the fact that I don't feel like doing this. And if I can do that in a way that can reignite some sort of entertainment for myself, then I think I'm gonna be okay. And then the night goes faster, right? Because if you're having fun, the night always goes faster. That's always the truth. The day goes faster that way too. But so I don't know. I don't mean to say boredom. Like I'm never going to say that my life is boring. I don't feel that way ever. But those things, those little things, you sometimes get tired of doing. Taxes.
Okay. That I would be bored doing.
Yeah. Yeah. Right.
Especially because you and I talk about looking at our numbers so much during the month,
Yeah.
I think by the time that comes, I mean, it is more data entry than having to go through everything else.
Well, and that's the concept, right? That you learn like, I don't like doing this. This I mean, bores kind of feels like a weak word for all this, but this bores me. So next year I'm going to be more diligent about all the extra stuff I can do to avoid this taking a long time.
Yeah. And, that's where she brings in the book Atomic Habits, which is now the second time that book has come up because Johnny brought it up. The things that make taxes boring are because of the habits that you create to make sure you have all your numbers in the right place, that it is only data entry by the time you get there. And then now for creativity, she was talking about taking 15 or 30-minute blocks throughout your day to work on different things such as songwriting or recording or now writing and editing this book.
That is no small feat, right? And we'll talk about the book itself later, but just to finish something like that, she has no problem, obviously. I feel like anybody that can finish a book, they're not the kind of person that is struggling with being bored, So I know she doesn't feel boredom like that in that term either. So I think all of this is really healthy for us to remind yourself that it's okay, first of all, to feel those little moments where you're like demotivated. Is that a better word than boredom?
Yeah, I like that.
And to recognize if it's actually burnout, because burnout can show itself sort of like actual depression, right? Like in a way that you can't control it, right? Like it's a symptom, so it's important just to be aware.
Especially when you're relocating, because you can feel like there is so much to get done that it is very easy to burn out. Again, going back to the Atomic Habits book and what she was talking about, you take away that intensity by just nipping things in the bud 15, 20 minutes at a time. And that beats the intensity. It creates momentum without the burnout.
Yeah. Well, and when you find those things that are motivating you and you keep following them, you tend to not deal with these things as much, right? This book came about, sounds like, because it kept coming up. And she was like, okay, I'm going to listen to that. We didn't really talk about that, but it kind of felt that way that she was saying that. And to me, that's part of the gift as artists, that we get to define that music career, that we get to find our career as a whole. And like we've touched on a few times here is during this interview, that you don't have to only do music. In fact, most musicians that are successful also have other interests, and so do you, and so do I, and so do all of everyone's listening. We all have other interests. you should incorporate them. You should embrace them. You should do them too, right? This is important that you enjoy all the things that you are interested in.
And that's what makes you successful too, going back to the burnout, because you could follow some things that you might just be passionate about, but also makes you money. And you're not looking at your creative world as something that you're just chasing money for. So it's not always just about money.
Yeah. Well, and chasing money, I've noticed this. Okay, now this is me being real time. I noticed that the phase of my life where I was super motivated by making money is starting to end. And I'm grateful that it lasted as long as it did and it came when it did. Now, that doesn't mean that I don't value money or want to keep making money, but I'm noticing that it's not what motivates me at the moment. And I think plenty of people have never even felt like money motivates them. And that's okay. I mean, I get it because I'm in that phase now where I'm just like, I want to do meaningful things in a different way. I mean, money has to be a part of it in order to sustain myself and my family, but it's still just not the thing that I'm like, I'll stay for 6 hours and perform, although I'm doing that on Saturday.
Again.
And I don't want to, but it's also about my job. And I still want to show up and do a good job of what I'm supposed to do. And the reason that I get these opportunities is because I can say yes to those things.
And you've also detached yourself from income being your self-worth, which makes you able to go do that and enjoy 6 hours for something for different reasons, having to do that within the same field of music. You know, you're focusing on meaning, connection, defining your own version of success. And that's freedom.
Totally. That is freedom. Money doesn't bring happiness, but happiness brings money. And I don't know if that's the right way to say it, but it is something like that, because every time you tend to follow what you really care about, money does tend to follow behind it because you're creating value, you know? And you tend to be good at what it is that you're trying to do.
One thing she emphasizes is writing for different purposes, which also can be fun. So especially when she brings up sync, that I'm sure you're getting some prompts that you're writing for that, but also writing for yourself and having to express yourself and put emotion into it, not just for a commercial pitch.
Yeah, that's 100% true. And they also always say at those conferences that as soon as you start trying to write for sync, your music doesn't hit well. It's so difficult to be like, write something honest. Now follow these rules, but don't follow these rules as too hard, because we want it to be real music. We want it to be good.
Yeah.
We don't want it to be artificially created just for this. But, you know, we need these things to happen in order for this to work. And it's like, it just always kind of walks that line. But there are people, as she said, there are people that is what they're good at. And that's okay. Like if it's not you, then that's also okay. Like you don't need to feel that you constantly have to try to be that if that's not who you are.
What did we say? It was like stinking thinking. So could we come up with if you write for sync, if you write music for sync, it sometimes tends to stink. What?
I don't know.
That's my quote, Chris.
Damn.
Who's never done any of that.
Well, I don't think that sync should be as intimidating as it is, and she said the same thing. It's getting to be more saturated, 100%. But it's also, the doors are wider for more people to give it a shot. If you just make your music and do it well, likely there's a place for your music in sync.
Well, you said, it's starting to get saturated. I'm sure there's plenty of agencies too. So she really did something special with Unicorn Sync to have that nonprofit aspect to it. And that, what do they say? If the front door is closed, build a side door. Hey, you know what I say, Chris? If the front door is closed, build the side door. Solve the problem for others, and opportunities will flow back to you. So she did something. She put her neck out there. She's like, I'm not getting the response I want. So I'm going to do it on my own, and I'm going to do a spin that helps out other people, again, which we were talking about at the beginning of this podcast.
And I do think that is such a great example of going with what you're interested in, because it sometimes is leading you to that solution that brings you back to where you wanted to get to, right?
Yeah.
I mean, if and that's the win-win-win here, right? That is, she helped others that needed the help by making this nonprofit. The nonprofit then attracted other people that perhaps she couldn't have attracted otherwise. And those connections then gave opportunity for her clients, her musicians, to get sync opportunities that would never have had those connections otherwise. Everybody's winning. I just love when stuff like that happens, because we don't sometimes realize that in good business, in business when it's good, everyone can win, right? So often you think that there's a winner and a loser, or somebody who's getting the better deal. And that doesn't have to be the reality. And so often these kind of things do occur, and they need to be highlighted so the rest of us can see these are the ways that we can do that.
And having a good business background will always help you. If you can develop both the creative muscles and the business muscles, you can switch modes to make your career more resilient and versatile in today's industry. And so many times musicians might not want to focus on how to make the money, but want to make the money, but they're spending all their time making the music, which I wish I had more time to make the music, or that was driving me more lately, but you move and you have different focuses. And like you said, you had a point in your career where you were working towards the money, and now you can focus on music differently. So having both of those skill sets, I think, is very important. And she seems to be doing a fantastic job at both.
It's almost like you're honoring yourself, right? Like you're like, I'm worth doing what it is that I love doing. And whatever that is right now is what I should use to motivate me to do the things that I can do. And hopefully, I mean, the other end of that too, I like to highlight is that we always want to give more than we're getting, right? In business, that is usually the way to succeed, I think, is offer more. And we talked about that a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Than is expected, or give such value that people can't deny that you're the best choice they made, And in the same realm of that, by doing something like a charity, doing something like a nonprofit, is also giving to humanity, giving to the world, giving to the causes. That is giving more than people could ever ask of you, right? And that, to me, again, gives so much power in just your dharma, right? Like your feeling of purpose, and your feeling of how easy it is to do hard things because they feel right. There was an example of that I heard somewhere where it's like dharma is like when you're a kid, like if somebody's got a gun and they're pointing it at you, and you're obviously, what are you going to do? You're going to do what they say, right? As soon as somebody points a gun at your kid, you're tackling them. You know what I mean? You're doing whatever you need to do without fear, even though you might be afraid, but you're doing it because it's right. That's sort of like the Dharma, or that's just a dramatic example. But here too, it's like you're doing the things that feel right, even though they're hard. Creating what she's created, this incredible stature of ways for her to not only be an artist, but help others, is because it all felt right, even though it's not easy stuff to do.
Well, I can't wait to get my hands on that book. I know we're going to talk about more of that now in the next episode. Stay tuned.
Yeah. Yes.
What's our action step? What are we doing this week?
So this is appropriate for us then to say our action step this week is to try looking for your win-win-win opportunities, your ideas on how you might find ways to help yourself while helping others. I even should say this differently. I should say help others and provide a service while helping yourself, because all of that is a win-win-win, and it does exist all the time around you. And it's prevalent in the music industry when you look for it, and there's always ways to do it in your own interpretation. We know your time is valuable, and we appreciate you spending this time with us and being a part of this community. It's our hope that you feel that sense of community here at Musicians Tip Jar, and that you'll help spread the word to make us all stronger. If you'd like to get a hold of us or Elaine Ryan, What's the best way to do that?
Check out musicianstipjar.com for tools, resources, and discounts built specifically to help keep you up on the finance side of your music business. And reach out to us anytime at musicianstipjar@gmail.com. We'd love to hear your story. If this episode resonates with you, share it with a friend, leave a review, or hit that like button if you're on YouTube. It helps us grow the community and support more music like you. If you want to check out Elaine Ryan, Instagram, it's at Elaine Ryan Music. Website is elaineryan.ca. And for her website for Sync, syncmusicforachange.com.
As always, thank you for joining us. And remember, there is already enough for everyone. You just need to know how to get it. Until next time, on behalf of Dave Tamkin and myself, Chris Webb, stay happy, healthy, and wealthy. You are enough as you are. That's it. This is Musician's Tip Jar.
Oh Lord, I could use somebody. I could use somebody.
Nothing on this show should be considered specific, personal, or professional advice. Please consult an appropriate tax, legal, business, or financial professional for individualized advice. Individual results are not guaranteed, and all discussed strategies have the potential for profit or loss. The hosts are operating on behalf of Musicians Tip Jar LLC exclusively.
Use a little help, yeah. Could use some help, could use a little help, yeah. Could use some